But don't worry, we got both of these playing in the second half, so definitely tell your friends about The Night Comes for Us and how much ass they missed seeing kicked in the last 2 hours. But yeah, so whenever Timo comes back, we're gonna have a Q&A and it'll be great. You guys will love it. I'm just gonna, talk about life. How you doing?
How are you?
What's your name, sir?
Rod, I think.
Rod, how's your fest going? I ran out of room on my mic.
It's fantastic.
It's fucking fantastic. That's what we like to hear, Rod. Matt, how's your fest going?
So good.
So fucking good.
How's yours going?
My fest has been really good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You have a birthday?
I had a great fucking birthday. I threw a festival for it. I appreciate you guys coming out for my birthday festival, by the way.
What day of the festival is it?
37, 38, who knows? Anybody have any questions for me? Where is my... Yeah, no, I need another list. Are we good? Timo, ladies and gentlemen. The man behind the madness. Timo, I know we got some more cast and crew. Would you mind doing the honors to introduce those folks?
Yeah, okay, so sorry guys, there's a long queue in the pisser and I really need to take a piss, but I just want to be honest here. I want to introduce Joe Taslim as Ito. And our greatest asset, Zach Lee as the white boy Bobby.
Yeah.
Our producer somewhere. There you go. Sorry.
What up, Wiggers? So you guys be thinking about questions, and just so you guys know, we're simulcasting at a theater, so when somebody asks a question, I'm going to repeat the question, and then you can answer. So I'm just going to kick things off here. Joe, I'm a huge fan of the Fast and Furious series, and I know you did obviously Fast 6, you did Star Trek Beyond. Can you talk a little bit about going back to like the Indonesia and making a film like this with your Asian buddies?
Asian buddies.
It's been great. It's a reunion with me and Iko, because we worked together in the Red Redemption 7 years ago.
Yeah, I think we've heard of that film.
Yeah, and he's amazing. He was an amazing choreographer, amazing martial artist, and the design of the choreography was brilliant. It was amazing. So I'm fortunate enough working with great people that supported me, like Timo, because this project's supposed to happen 3-4 years ago. Something happened and we have to wait for like another. So
we don't have money. We don't have the money. It's plain as that. We don't have the money.
Yeah, thank you to Netflix came out for a rescue. So I'm blessed working with great talented people, great talented family and friends. And yeah, all the credits of the fight I have to give it to Iko and his team and Timo. I'm just a fortunate actor that be able to study the choreography and train so hard, and hopefully you guys like it. Thank you.
I think we liked it, didn't we? All right, we got questions? Yeah. Yep.
First off, Timo,
Yep.
can you direct the next Batman? Can you be that Batman?
Could you direct the next Batman for us?
Dude, I would be happy. Bob from Batman, the original Batman? If I just make a movie about him, I'll be more than happy. I don't want the pressure of doing something like that. I watched this for probably like 1,000 times already, and all I see is flaws, so I was like cringing and like closing my eyes. Do they notice? Okay, well, And whenever Nate, who's our good friend from XYZ, kind of take a breath, I was like, does he hate it? Does he hate it? You don't hate it though, right, Nate?
I love it.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Awesome, yeah, in there.
Apart from the song title, what inspired you to use the song By Low in the final shot?
So what inspired you to use the song by Low?
I am so glad that somebody actually notices this law. Yeah. It's a Canadian band, so if nobody noticed, it's probably Nah, I'm just doing a bad Canadian joke. Sorry. It's not the place. It's not the place. Anyway, I love the song since forever, and honestly, like I've always wanted to use, because this is a pretty old song, and I always wanted to use the song in my 2014 film called Killers. But at the time, we don't even have the budget to, buy the rights. So in context of him being, what it is, the title. So I think it makes sense, and like it's really powerful. It kicks you in the nuts towards the end. So yeah, that's it.
surprise for me.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And we all love getting kicked in the nuts. So, do you have other questions from the audience? Yeah.
What was I guess this is for everybody, what was the most challenging fight sequence to shoot?
What was the most challenging fight sequence for you guys to shoot?
I will give you an answer, and probably Joe can answer better. But like for me, the most challenging scene will be probably the girls, because other than Hannah, the girl with Helena, the peroxide girl, like none of them are really actually martial artists. Of course, Julie has an experience, but to combine all the choreography of 3 non-martial artists, and to have them kind of like moving in the same rhythm, it's really hard, So strangely enough, even though it's the most grueling, but like shooting Joe and Iko on the final fight, like it's really. Well, what can I say? I'm just sitting behind the monitor and they're like kicking me. So I was like, can you do it harder? Can you do it even more harder? So that's all I do. I'm pretty much a glorified, crew. So, but Joe, you better, you give a better
couple
answer.
fight scenes in the movie, and I think the toughest is the final scene with Iko. Even though we're like brothers, we trust each other, and the chemistry is so strong, and we heard each other, we laugh about it. It's for us, it's a play. It's a play. It's like. Yeah, doing stage acting is a play for us, and then, but the toughest part is because we shot that earlier. We shot at the final fight at the beginning of the 2 weeks of the shoot. So to be able to go into the character and drag everything inside what happened from the beginning of the movie till that scene, it's tough. It's pretty tough emotion, because that fight is very emotional. They're like brothers, and then all the pains, all the level of exhaustion, level of what do you call it? Concentratie?
Huh?
Concentratie?
Injury.
Yeah, level of injuries. What happened?
He's nervous. He's nervous.
What happened from beginning towards that scene that I have to dig that hard. That it's kind of like before we start. It's kind of like a couple of days of that we shot that in 8 days. Some of the days I got headache before we shoot, so it's pretty emotional.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not just a fight. Yeah.
My biggest con is telling Iko and Joe, okay, so Iko as a lead choreographer, right? He said like, Timo, like I really need a clean space for this, aircon on, and like a studio that we built to make it look like a piece of shit that it is, And I said, yeah, sure, guys, like let's find a studio, and naturally we didn't find any studio because like in Jakarta we don't really have a huge studios, so what we do, we finally found a literal abandoned warehouse where sometimes when they're fighting, we literally see a rat just walking into the frame. Roaches is alright, like roaches, they're just like, okay, well, collateral damage, but like with rats, like I was like, okay, it's a really good move, but there's rats. And sometimes like it's up to the 7th take and Iko's arguing like, can you not just move the rat with CGI or something? You can't do that.
We'll just give the rat a name. He'll be a character.
Well,
It'll be
exactly.
awesome. We have other questions from the audience? Yeah, way up there.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Well, that movie featured so many interesting ways of injuring and killing people. When you're coming up with those fight scenes, how much of that, those innovative ways, is stuff that is way before you even get there? How much of that is when you're doing choreography, like see the space and you're coming up with stuff? How does that work?
Okay, so we're super impressed with the unique and myriad ways you found to injure and murder people in the film. And we're curious a little bit about how much of that was pre-planned and how much of that is kind of on the day determining how people die.
I think the basic idea was always to be, none of these characters are safe. Like that's the fundamental sort of like rule that we set, especially with Iko. Like I don't want, for example, like Operator, she's supposed to be a smooth character, but like at the end she still loses a finger. So that's all part of the little bits and pieces that we are pulling. But like when it comes to kills, usually the concept will always be Iko and his team kind of design the, you know, like the whole, the backbone of the choreography, so to speak. And I'll be seeing the setup of the props, table, chainsaw, and all that stuff, and then we implement it later on. So even in a, you know, in a situation like phone books, for example, I'll just give you an example. Nobody really uses phone books nowadays, right? So when you watch him putting phone books as an armor, that's something that I kind of learned when I was 17. Because back then, like, I'll be hanging out with some bad crowds, and like, you know, when stuff like that happens, some people would cheat using like phone books to cover themselves against punches. So I kind of implement that, and you know, some of the producers asking like, hey, but nobody really uses phone books anymore. Who cares, right?
Well, let me follow up on that a little bit. Tell us, one of my favorite sequences is the butcher sequence, you know, the butcher fight. So tell us a little bit about the choreography there and planning out that shoot.
Okay. All right. Where should I start? All right. So, you know, like as some of you might know, like I'm more of a horror guy fundamentally. So having a sort of like a very sort of hygiene space yet filled with this, it's all started from colors actually. Like I really like the idea of blue clashing with red. And I kind of, when I watch it there, I kind of might overdone it, you know, but like, sorry. But yeah, well, that's the idea. So the concept of them fighting and while having to wrestle things like just keep on moving in the background, that's really appealing to me because like I never really have the intention to make the fights slick and clean. Like I always like, you know, I'm covering my weakness by making it messy and just stumbly and all that stuff. So, you know, there you go. I hope that answered your question.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
It's so weird seeing Aiko in that suit, but was him wearing a suit just so you could set up the tie in the fight?
Nah, I mean Iko is a guy who, you know, like we don't want to see him, like we already seen how good he can be in Raid and all that stuff, and the idea of, I guess here's the thing. When I thought of the very basic concept of how the character is going to be, I always see Joe as a T800 and Iko as a T1000. Like, so, and you know, like there's a point in my life where I really have a boner about T1000 because like Robert Patrick is just a fucking perfect fucking villain, you know. And you know, like, have you ever watched like T2 for like I don't know how many 100 times, and then you see like there's no crease at all in Robert Patrick's clothing. So of course, like he's supposed to be the T1000, right? So that's where I kind of like just rip it off. Like I just like the idea of Iko finally dons a suit, and obviously he does complain because you know fighting in a suit like it's actually
I can't
really
imagine
hard.
it's easy.
There you go.
All right, we got time for like one more. Yes.
So are we 100% certain that white boy Bobby didn't survive?
Are we sure that Zach Lee didn't somehow survive this mess?
He died.
He died with a hangover though.
Yeah, with a
Like,
hangover,
we don't
yeah.
see him waking up.
Yeah, we
So,
always
yeah.
pick up off the hangover.
By the way,
It's hard, though.
yeah, I mean, and you know, like I gotta give props to him. By the way, the name White Boy Bobby completely comes from the fact that he's really a white boy. So, there's no.
Thank you for being racist, man.
Super literal. I love it. Huge thanks to Netflix for bringing it out.
Sorry.
Huge thanks to these guys.
Yeah,
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, please.
We've been talking Asian. Actually, it's a Netflix original movie, so it's not that Asian. And we have XYZ as our production company. too.
Huge thanks.
Thank you, XYZ. Sorry, by the way, one more thing. You know, like, despite like his presence in the screen, Joe is actually a very sweet guy. He actually literally print like 60, hoodies to give away.
Shirts
Oh,
of
yeah,
Cash
like-
Crew fan clubs for your select.
So, you know, like if anybody wants that, you know.
What do you decide? Why don't you go pick, before everybody gets up, you go pick 5 people. So nobody leaves. We got 5 shirts to give out real quick. Yeah.
Somebody has a question.
Okay. After you.
Yes. Bobby Ha. I love you, buddy. Huge thanks to these guys, ladies and gentlemen. The night comes for us. Make sure you stick around in the next round for May the Devil Take You.
Thank you guys. Thank you.